educator, and a health and wellness advocate and coach. Tonight, we are going to be talking about how to win and fight back using positivity. Okay, and so on tonight, I'm not on screen, but that doesn't mean that the conversation does not have to continue. So we're going to go off script this evening. We're going to just kind of speak what's on our heart, nothing that's been written down or anything like that. But we're just going to talk about how can you fight back challenges that we face in our daily lives from a positive perspective. So we have here tonight, we have Brother Hatem, we have Sister Cheryl, and we have Brother Ricky Sindab, I think, is on the call. So we're glad to have you all. Others are going to be dropping in just a little bit. And as they do, they're just going to kind of join in the conversation. All right, take it away, Brother Hatem.
All right, well, let's get it. Let's get it. So, I'm not really a positivity dude, but you know, the doc has laid down the course, and we will stay it as much as possible. How to fight back and win with positivity. I want to apologize to everybody out there that, like I said, I can't share my camera because I am streaming this as we speak. We are right now streaming on a few different platforms, and so I'm using what would be called my virtual camera, and my virtual camera is the screen that is being shot out. So I apologize for that. But let's go and get this conversation started. Now, Dr. Jack says she ain't had nothing written down, but I had to go on and write some stuff down for this particular piece here. So we got the power of a positive mindset. A positive mindset is a powerful tool that can help you overcome setbacks, conquer our fears, and turn our dreams into reality. By training our minds to focus on the good, we can foster resilience, cultivate self-confidence, and strengthen our ability to adapt to change. So by training our mind. So what processes and anybody can speak of, what processes do any of us have in our life that helps us with the resilience, helps us keep in a positive mind state? Because for some reason, the term positive mind state kind of bothers me. I look more at self-determination and resilience. But what processes do you go through when things get rough that you might be able to share out here with some of the people?
I just try to think it could be worse.
Mm.
That's
Okay.
that's the only thing.
Okay.
Because I struggled with this because when something would happen, I would fall apart. You
Ooh.
couldn't tell me it wasn't the worst thing that could be going on in my life or anything. I had to really start looking at a bigger picture, like it could be worse. That's all. That's what I use now to just make it through. If not, I'd fall apart.
Say it could be worse. How
Yep.
any of the family out there that might also have that mindset now? Because I kind of switched minds because I used to use that one too. It could be worse. But one of the things that I often refer to, one of my personal mantras is I say, one day I'm gonna laugh about this. And
That's a good one.
I have yet to been wrong. I mean, it might have took a long time, a lot of recovery, but I always tell myself one day I'm gonna laugh about this. Anything else? Anybody else got any processes that they take themselves through to so that you could be resilient and make it through? Because like I said, this is a very important conversation for us to have, especially as a Black community, right? Because a lot of stuff that is measured against us, whether it's real or in many cases imagined, we have to have a certain type of resilience, and we have to have a mind state that can push us or keep us standing. Any other processes that anybody got out there that they would like to
Well,
share?
I had a question, like, Cheryl, what was there an occasion or an event that kind of maybe came to a head to make you then say, it could be worse? Was there something that happened that made you just get to that point where you said, whatever I used to do, however I used to respond, is not working. So I'm going to now adopt this. What event, if you can share with us, was the turning point, I suppose? And before you answer that, I want to double back and ask Brother Hatem, why is it that you say you don't come from a positive perspective? And while you're holding on to that question, you're not a positivity guy. That's what you're saying.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, so before you get to that, we have Cheryl, we have you, Brother Hatem, and I think this is Brother Ricky Sindab. Brother Ricky Sindab, hello. Well, he's here. He's here in this space. He's probably otherwise occupied.
Yeah, I'm
Brother,
here.
okay, so you are. I want you to hold tight, Brother Sindab, because as a leader in a spiritual community, a religious leader, I would like for you to share with us what it is that you use personally, because I know you have a lot of souls that you got to be governing over. What is it that you use personally to keep you going? So if you hold that 1 second, Brother Sindab. Let's start with Miss Cheryl, and then Brother Hatem, and then Ricky Sindab.
It wasn't just one thing. It was a culmination of, number one, I read too much, I see too much, and then what I see on my daily job. And I would walk away like I really don't have the problems that I thought I had. So it just wasn't one, like one thing just made me like, boom. It was just like a daily something, every day. Okay. And it just like changed my mind frame.
Okay. Because the truth is that I guess it could be worse.
Yeah. I mean, just some of the stories that I heard and just some of the things that I saw, it really, just changed my outlook on things that I thought were just so devastating and so wrong. I just, it was minuscule compared to what others have been going through or what they went through.
And that's big. That's big. I think my mom used to always say, well, when you're feeling bad, there's always someone else who has it worse off than you. And, at the time I was like, how could it be possible that someone has it worse off than me? But, over the course of time, life teaches you that, things might not be as bad as they could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl. Brother Hatem, tell me why you are not a positivity guy. Like, why? Why?
I'm not because how can I put it? The universe works in dualities. So oftentimes, let me say in my personal life, some of the worst things that I felt happened to me at the time when I thought they were the worst things ended up being some of the best things that have ever happened to me. So I feel that a lot of times people might be ducking their own blessings by not accepting something for what it is.
Ooh.
You understand what I'm saying? So when we say the positivity mind state, I'm more thinking a resilient mind state, a self-determined mind state, or as they say in Kwanzaa speak, practicing Kujichagulia. Because, the creator of the universe, at least the way I know this creator, made good and bad. And all of those things serve this whole creation. So my key piece is, what can I pull out of it? So I'm looking more for a balance and a resilience so that regardless of what comes, I'm like a mountain.
Okay. Well, what can I say to that, right? I mean, because um that's really essentially how things should be, that we should be able to strike a balance, that if there is a day, then there's a night. If there's a good, then there's a bad. What does that say? To every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, so that, it is in fact that there should be a balance. And I definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with the Kuji Chagalia self-determination piece. And we'll get right back to that. Brother Sindab, as a leader, excuse me, as a leader of a spiritual community, a church, several churches, what do you use personally as a way to, I guess, deal with things when they come and they aren't always the best?
Two ways. I look at it through history, and I look at it through what the Bible says. History is my major in my area, so I believe that we can look back and see how our ancestors handled their situations, and we can learn from their movements as far as success or not, being unsuccessful, and being able to move. That's why I believe you need to teach your kids about their history, because there's a lot of power in knowing how they overcame a lot of the things that they did. If I were to look at the Bible, if you cannot be a follower of Jehovah or God, if you don't really believe his scripture says simply all things work together for good. So therefore, if that's the real scripture, the scripture is telling us that no matter what we face, there's something in it that we can glean from to either grow spiritually or grow physically to get us to where we need to be. I mean, I know it's hard to tell somebody when somebody died is a good point, but there's something that we can glean from that. If you just glean the knowledge and the history that you got from that person, or the memories that you have, and even when you've fallen, are unsuccessful, there's some good in that, because you learn from your mistakes how not to put yourself in that same situation again. So if you're going to be a believer in the word, and I teach that if you just don't quote the scriptures, you got to be able to live them and be able to really take a good understanding of them. So when you look at that all things work together for good, then you need to look at the second part of that scripture, that it just don't say all things work together for good, but for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. If you don't have a relationship with him, then that gives you the understanding that whatever happened is for the good. So your relationship, I tell them to build a relationship with their God, whomever it is, and hopefully their God will be able to bring them peace in their situation.
Thank you for that, because brother Sindab, we have also brother Neil. He's out of Chicago, and he is a pastor of a church there in Chicago, and he's always, much like you, always, responsible. He's responsible for a lot of stuff. He has a lot of moving parts, and when he comes and to share with us, he always has good things for us to reflect on and walk away with. And I have another question for you, brother Sindab. So if, what's going on today is that they're saying that history is not important. But according to what you're saying, history is important. How is it that we can, what should we believe? Should we believe that history is important? Should we believe that history is not important? How important is history really, in your opinion, especially with dealing with these things that are coming at us today?
It's essential to life. It teaches you how to react to what you're going through. There's nothing new under the sun. There's just stuff that has advanced and come at us in a different way. But if we look at how history has handled it, then it can show us how to get that knowledge of self. A lot of times we don't want to teach our kids knowledge of self. I told them in church today that, I grew up where there was an outhouse. I grew up in an outhouse. My grandmother wouldn't let us come inside to use the indoor plumbing, but using that outhouse taught me a lot. It showed me where we came from, and showed me what we needed to survive. The dirty history is what we need to teach people, that, that it always wasn't going to Ohio State. Before we could go to Ohio State, you had to go to Morris. You had to go to Wilberforce. You had to go to those colleges that were just built just for you. And now when they have been taught now that that's obsolete. And I do believe that we were better when we were segregated than we are now, because we had pride in what we had. And when we lost that, we began to simulate the master culture, and we lost who we were. And by losing ourselves, we have become less of the greatness that we could have. We're the greatest people that ever lived, but you can't do that when you think that your greatness comes from a simulation and not being leaders. So history is important that we teach them that we weren't always on the back seat. We created the bus. We created mathematics. You know, they were talking about it today on the news that those great philosophers and mathematic teachers had actually studied at the feet of Africans. You know, and how they taught that what they thought was new had already been established hundreds of years before they even heard of it. So that's stuff that needs to be taught because it will empower us to be more prideful of ourselves. And when you find pride in yourself, you're able to forgive yourself and get able to move forward.
You know what? I love that. I absolutely love hearing, for me, this is positive. I absolutely love hearing about us, our culture, our strength, the things that we have been able to overcome, which should give us a guideline or guidepost as to what we are going to be capable of or what we can't be capable of accomplishing. I wanted to jump in real quick and speak to Brother Neil. Brother Neil, our conversation is really great. It's really kind of like ad lib tonight. There's nothing per se that's written down. We have Brother
I got stuff written
but
down.
I was gonna say we got Brother Hatem. He's on the wheels of steel on the ones and twos. He's directing stuff tonight. So, feel free to jump in because as always, our conversations just aren't a single lane. We kind of we veer to one lane over here to the right, one lane over, to the left. But in the end, all of it makes sense.
And I got an example of this resilient mind state after Brother Neil goes.
Oh, okay. Hi everybody. Sorry I'm late. The topic is so timely for me, and I appreciate it because I've noticed that negativity has become our default. And there are people in our community who are bombarded with negativity, and that's all they know how to speak. Any conversation leads to the negative. Every solution is lost in the negativity. And this weekend, I just felt the need to kind of talk about it. And so today is awesome that you had this topic because one thing we have to understand that the thief come not to steal, kill, and destroy. So everything he does is with the purpose of destroying our mindset, destroying our view of things and destroying our actions. And the only way he can do that is by altering our thinking. And so as you think in your heart, so are you. And so once you carry this negative mindset, then it stays with you, it permeates with you, it seeps out of your pores, it unveils itself in every conversation. And it gets to the point where you're so negative that you can't be a light because you can't be a light for Christ, but then also a reporter for the devil. So I've just been trying to say that, Christ has been telling us that he will come to give us abundant life, and I'm going to have it regardless of what goes on around me. I'm not going to let circumstances or situations keep me from being who God made me to be. And of course, yes, I have down days or down moments or whatever. That's totally different. What I think we're getting at from your flyer is just the overall malaise that people are in. And it's hard to get anything done in the community when people have already given up.
I'm sorry, I had the microphone off and I'm just about to start going in and yapping, but just based on what you said, just this last little piece here, I feel like, our community, the Black community, most especially, we've dealt with so much. It's like constantly being hit. I was talking to one of our former speakers. He played professional football. I was talking to him and he was talking about this thing called a blitz. Like, I don't play football. I don't know about no blitz, but I'm assuming that a blitz is when you just constantly getting hit or berated or barrage or whatever, right? So that's what I'm assuming, right?
No, baby, no.
No.
Somebody help her. That's not a
Well,
blitz.
a blitz. What's
Well, she was close,
She
brother.
was
You know,
good.
yeah,
come
see,
Oh
on.
I
my
never played
God.
football. They didn't let me. They wouldn't
Oh
let me.
my
I was wearing
God.
a Jerry curl. I was wearing a Jerry curl at the time. Like, so, but is a blitz when you like constantly getting bombarded with something? No,
I mean,
yes,
that's
no.
close. I mean, it's when the defense sends everybody. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's coming. So, you know, and usually on defense, you have some people that stay back just in case something breaks through. But a blitz is when they hit you with everything. Linebackers coming, cornerbacks might be coming, the safety might be coming, or you know what I'm saying? If it's everybody, but then you might have a single person blitz where that one person is able to come in. He's allowed to leave his position and come in and knock the hell out of the quarterback or whoever gets the ball. But anyway.
Well, okay, so that's exactly what I was saying. I mean, that's exactly what I was saying. So, in other words, us as I feel that our community, we have been blitzed with so many things coming in at us. We have inadequate housing, poor jobs. We have, considerably poor health. We have, disrupted families, fragmented families, relationships, et cetera, et cetera. We have so many things. So, it leaves open gapping spaces for negativity to come in at us. And in a sense we've been receptive to it because it's like, okay, well, here's something else, here's something else, here's something else. So it is difficult, I can imagine, for us as a community who has been hit with so much to be positive. Like, how can you be positive, brother Hatem? Could you speak to that real well? Or
But now so it's not, how can I put it? Yeah, you got the negative people, but once again, it gets back to the resilience, that balance, because my issue with the whole concept of the positivity is that you have some people who will try to put a pig in a suit regardless of the situation, and I don't think that's healthy. You know what I'm saying? They're always looking for the positive outcomes, when it might just be a matter of them doing something uncomfortable. Because like I said, you got to take, if you can't pray for rain and be mad because thunder coming. You can't have the ocean without the waves. I think that was Frederick Douglass that said that. But you got to take life, and I think we got to develop a view to where we are able to deal with life for real. So with our people, a lot of our people had very realistic views, but some people lean towards the negative and always expecting only the negative. And and for years that's what we got. You know what I'm saying? Now we have an opportunity to kind of change directions with where we are in time at this point in time, because we don't have it nearly as hard as our ancestors had it. So really, this is a walk in the park for us. I mean,
but
as a
do we
people,
really? But
huh?
do we really? I mean,
Yeah.
because for me, okay, see, my thing is that the battles are more psychological and spiritual, and we have not been equipped. I don't know that many of us have been equipped, and I'm maybe generalizing, been equipped to deal with the psychological and the spiritual, because we've been accustomed to, if we were in fact in slavery for 400 years or whatever the number is, we were used to being physically challenged, physically abused. So we have grown accustomed to the physicality portion of it. But what about and we weren't prepared for the psychological piece or the emotional piece. Now, of course, getting beat and killed and all of that, it does take a toll on your spirit, and it does take a toll on you psychologically. But we were prepared for the physical part. What I feel may be going on right now is more of a like all out attack psychologically, or all out attack on your soul. And so it may appear that, okay, nobody's beating us nobody is, starving us per se, but we are being starved and we are being beaten. It's just in a different light. Brother Neil, I'm sorry, I see your hand up.
No worries. But that's a good segue, because if the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and his job is to do it by deception, then one of the things he's done is giving us a picture that everything is negative. So if you have a constant barrage of things that are wrong, you never get a chance to see what's right and celebrate what's right. And so for some people, I believe that the information season that we're in, or the access to information, it's done nothing but help to traumatize our community. I'm not sure if they have this thing down there. I gotta imagine, but it's called ShotSpotter or something where you can keep track of crime on your cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
And so some people actually live by that. And to me, I said that's self-induced trauma.
There you go.
Why would I want to sit up here and look on an app, and especially us in big cities, right? Whether it be Atlanta, Chicago, Cleveland. So now I got to sit up here, and every time somebody shoot, I get an alert. So imagine how often you will be seeing that somebody shots fired somewhere, and now you're governing your life by it. I can't go out. I can't do that. And while you're getting that information, social media and the regular news outlet have a way of suppressing the good news.
Right.
So I just want to tell this testimony, because I say this: information for me informs me. It does not incite me. And so what happened this weekend, I was in Washington, D.C. with some friends working with Lil Durk's foundation. I'm not sure who has ever heard of Lil Durk or Durk.
Yes, I have.
Okay, I just became aware of him a couple of years ago, Doc. He came to Howard University, and while these kids were on a college tour from Chicago, he surprised two of the students who had already applied and already been accepted, surprised them on stage in the middle of the concert with $50,000 each. So the place went crazy. Of course, they were happy. They had called the mom, the parents, and they were excited. Then he produced a check, which was initially supposed to go to all kids from Chicago, $250,000 if they have trouble meeting their needs and if there's anything that's going to keep them from finishing school. But right there in the middle of presenting that, he waved it off and he said, you don't have to be just from Chicago, anybody. And he's going to raise some more money to do that. So as I was posting this on social media and trying to share the video, crickets. Nobody saw it. Nobody heard about it. That somebody gave away $350,000 plus, just like that. But the one thing that you are guaranteed to see is a group of teenagers that went crazy wild last night in Chicago, and now it's nationwide news. And so my point is, if you only get one view, you would think there's nothing good going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also an advocate of how we always talk about what's wrong with the youth, but yet we never even mentor the youth who are looking for support. Oh. There's some kids that are going to school. They're grinding. They're doing their best. But can you imagine what they're lacking, what they're missing? A mentor or somebody to help show them the ropes? And we don't do it, but we're so busy talking about the negative. So in that regard, I think we have kind of helped to exacerbate this problem that we have. And it's not to say that we got to ignore crime or ignore what's wrong, but if we can't celebrate what's right, then what kind of people are we? My 2 cents.
I wanted to piggyback on that because and it ain't even programming. Human beings look for those patterns that could be dangerous for us. Media understands this and they put that out. So we know about the murder that might have happened all the way in Miami, but I live all the way up in Columbus. That has absolutely nothing to do with me, right? But it catches my attention, right? So all this bad stuff catches attention, and we got to look at where a lot of our resources. Well, let me say this, and this is where I'm gonna challenge on. It might not even be a challenge, but there are more Black folks doing good and healthy than we can possibly imagine. You understand? Because it's like, because once again, we only get to see the bullshit. I just did my newsletter today, and I was covering a YouTuber by the name of FD Signifier. He did a video last year called Break Bread, and it's about leftist YouTube. And what he broke down in that was, like, for example, if you are a YouTuber like myself, or if Dr. Neil, or if Dr. Jax, or Sister Carissa, she has a show, if we have shows, the algorithm does not know how to deal with a Black show where people are talking about what we're talking about right now. So they just don't do anything with it. You could be filming and be like, my friends didn't even check out my video, but your friends never saw it on their timeline. These people is hyping up what sells. Violence sells. Violence catches attention. Sex catches attention. So this is what they're pushing out. And then on top of that, the algorithm don't fit us. So we look on Facebook and think that the state of Black America is totally messed up, when in fact that might be an illusion that we're seeing.
And thus my admonition that we utilize social media, but we don't become slaves to it.
There you go.
Or slaves to these various apps. And then also, I'm also the mindset that if you're out doing good, you're running to people doing good. So now you got to expand your circle. You got to expand what kind of people you're talking to. You just basically got to be careful of the company you keep. And that sounds old school, like when your mom and them told you about picking your friends. But for me, because I'm a very solution-oriented person. And you're just not going to get 2 or 3 hours of me where I'm sitting there talking about how the world's going to hell. You're just not going to get that.
Right.
I think maybe after the first 30 minutes, I'm going to be looking like, okay, what's the solution? Or then I'll start going over your resume. Because I believe that if you're not supporting or sharing or serving, then you're just talking.
Wow. Excuse me.
Go ahead, while you clear your throat, Doc. I was looking at numbers in the Bible today, and the story of the 12 spies in chapter 13 always intrigued me, because it comes back and said they brought an evil report when they shared what they saw in the land. And I never knew why they was called evil, because in my mind, they were just sharing what they saw. But what made it evil was the fact that they were handpicked, that they were leaders, and that they were supposed to go out and spy a land that God had already promised them. But instead, when they brought back that report, it brought fear and panic to the entire camp. And I believe that there was some people that are good at that now. They will only share bad news, and they're not being very leader-like, because this information that they see, which is true, is only serving to incite people. So if you can see kids wilding out or anything, if you read an article about kids not doing well in school, then you got options. Either you can get in there and roll up your sleeves, or you can support somebody who's already rolled up their sleeves. But what you can't do is sit back and be an internet warrior and talk about what's wrong with society when the furthest you get is a keystroke.
Man, come on. You are What's today? Sunday? Yes, you are preaching a sermon for today. Oh my gosh, just like, oh, before I go on, we have Dr. Carasay on. Hey, Dr. Carasay. We were just talking when you jumped in, and we're talking about how to fight back and win, using positivity, coming from a positive perspective. And so we are free flowing today. I'm not on camera, not feeling 100%, but Brother Hatim, he's in charge today, and
Whatever.
he's the man today. Not that he's not the man every day, but he's the man today. And so just kind of feel free to jump in as you would like. But again, back to you, Brother Neil, what you said about in the book of Numbers, like how different is what was written in the Bible saying they brought back an evil report? How different is that from what we see today, where it seems that those people who are in charge of, spreading this message or spreading the word or getting the news out, that they're not giving us the accurate reports? To Brother Hatim's point, they're not giving us what is the real, they're because we don't know it. And so we are focused on, we believe, in other words, what we see. And then how many of us are able to train our minds to say, this is wrong, this might not be the best information, or to question it. I have become so much of a conspiracy person, like, I don't believe nothing this person say. Like, I'm always like in this sense of non-belief, for the most part, because it's like I know that there's always an agenda, a hidden agenda. So,
There you go. Yeah, especially when you are privy to good work and excellent things. I mean,
right,
if you're there and then you come back and see something else, you kind of twist your head like Pavlov dog and say, "Wait a minute, I
right,
know this ain't right. I was there. I seen
right,
it."
right.
You probably know it from your family. Maybe when they talk about kids being no good, but yet you're looking at your children's friends and you're seeing all of them go on to do great things, graduate, be good citizens, good people. I think I said it, several weeks ago that we got to stop this default that everything is wrong with the younger generation. And I think the reality is it's the older people that have forsaken their duties as elders to go out and mentor and be available. Now, like I said, you can't solve it all by yourself, but before you speak, you should at least know that I'm in the fight.
Or yeah. And if we look at the resources of our communities, first off, since we don't control the politics, we don't control where the money go. Like, for example, you go to the schools, you look at where a majority of the financial support is, right? I mean, like I said, I work at a school where 85% of my population is doing or attempting to do what they need to do, but 85% of the organization's budget is going towards working with the 15% that are out of order. You know what I'm saying? We focus on the ones that, how can I put it? The focus is always on those loud ones and those disorderly ones. And oftentimes we walk right past all the good kids to try to save the bad one. And I think that's something that we might need to start reconsidering as well. Not just with children, but with a lot of things. We want to go in and renovate other people rather than working with the ones that have already renovated themselves and is ready to do work. So I'll leave it at that.
No, that's exactly right, brother. Because the reality is, if you would invest on the front end, that percentage of so-called bad wouldn't be as high as it is. So really, it's about where you want to put your investment. Mm-hmm. But that aside, even the things that when you talk about budgets and this and that, if once you are called to something, or once you have decided that this is how I need to fight this is what I need to do, The one thing you can't do is create a self-made barrier. Talking about money, we don't have this, I don't have that. You just need to get in the fight, and the resources that you need, God will supply that. But especially if you're talking about schools, for example, kids are not impressed as much by your money as they are your consistency. When they see you there and they see that you care for them, that's all they need. So we could fight about the money later, but in the meantime, there needs to be a bombardment of people, especially men, in these schools, because I know that the schools teachers are like 75 to 80, 85% women. There's a great majority of teachers that are white. And it's just, some people are going years before they even have a male teacher. So the only men they see are disciplinarians, or maybe later the assistant principal or the principal. So they go there pretty much almost their entire school year, and I mean a school career, and probably never have a male instructor.
And I remember when I was teaching, very good points, by the way. I remember when I was teaching in South Carolina rural school, there were 3 Blacks at the school. And this is country, 56 to 60%. It was a high number of Black students, but I was one Black teacher, there was one Black administrator, and there was another Black teacher. So just being able to see a Black teacher, male or female, was, few and far between. And so I made sure that, and we, it was a poor school, rural school, it didn't have anything, but I made sure that my presence was known. And, there, I had those students in my classes. I stayed after school. I was so involved in their lives. Like, I wanted to make sure that they knew that I cared for them, because I did not see a Black teacher when I was, growing up in school. I didn't. Now, I'll take that back. We had a Black assistant principal, and we had, I think, maybe a Black counselor. But in terms of having an impact on my life, the counselor, you were scared to go see the counselor because they're like, oh, you didn't know what they would say, like, oh, your grades aren't good enough for you to get into a college, or you didn't want to see the principal because you didn't want to get in trouble. So it was, I guess, maybe a fear there. But in terms of having someone who wasn't a janitor there to be a role model, even though I didn't have it per se, I made sure that I was that role model. And then, just a side note, this is such a side note, this ain't even in the direction, but and we could talk about this, but this is something that's weighing heavy on my head. And again, this is a ad lib free kind of speech tonight, but there's this documentary that's done come out about Freaknik of 1994. Now, I didn't attend.
Praise God. Oh,
Look,
I miss you, Freaknik. Oh,
I hope you was never down there at that Freaknik, because
what? Oh, man.
You went to the Freaknik?
I went to jail going to the Freaknik. What did you talk about? Yes.
Well, I must have didn't know you then, because I didn't know you then, because back then we used to read the Bible and stuff like that. We used to have Sunday school and all of those kinds of things.
You better stop lying to these kids. That's part of the problem. That's part of the problem.
That's what I was going to talk about. I was going to segue into that after I had checked you, but apparently I can't check you, because anyway, Dr. Karasay. Hey, Dr. Karasay.
Hi. I'm sorry, y'all. We have so much going in Kansas City right now. How are you guys?
Doing
we
good.
Are
Thank
good.
you for asking.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Well, one, I wanted to ask you, you brought up schools, and I thought about the sister that you had on, maybe it was 2 or 3 chats before. You remember the sister that was having the issue with her lead teacher?
Right.
Yes. Yes.
I thought about her because it is with the situation that she is in, and just going back to this and people understanding that people have to understand first that we are absolutely in and have been immersed in psychological warfare, or even in, clinical terms, it's called, of course, is, psychological warfare since we were brought here. And I don't know how many of you all study, Malcolm X and, Carter G. Woodson and, even before that,
Yes.
I mean, authors older than them, but or even just the idea of doctrination and colonization,
Mm-hmm.
it is based upon the theory of when you control the mind, the
Mm-hmm.
body will follow. And so that is the first thing that is under attack. And even though we were enslaved physically, it was the mental and the psychological that completely broke us down.
Well, get out of there.
And I don't know if any of you read Mao, but it is, you have to understand how it works. And the first mistake, well, I would say the second, because the first mistake is our lack of understanding that it is war. For me, it's war all the time. But I am not at war within myself. So that is the first, I guess, the first rule of engagement, rather. But outside of that, or along with that, is that you have to learn how to fight without fighting. Because being the population here, where we are not in control of the resources, we are not in control of the government, we are not the ruling class in any aspect. I don't care if Oprah is a gazillion billionaire or we had Barack Obama as a president. I don't care about any of that as it relates to this, because we're still economically, financially, politically in the same position. That's not to say that progress has not been made, because I am not saying that. But when people don't understand how to fight without fighting, because we will lose. And we have been indoctrinated to do that. And then in doing that, we always lose. And who does that hurt? Because that system, this system, has been created. It's been created by them. So they know how it works. They know how it's going to end because they planned it, and they've been very strategic about it. They wrote a whole constitution about it, okay, and the whole Declaration of Independence, if you want to get technical about it.
Okay.
We are following in line. And so the plan is already there, and it's designed for them to win. So we go in underserved, underarmed. We are not ready for combat. So with that, we have to learn how to fight without fighting. We have to learn those rules of engagement by learning the opponent, and those things about, I don't know. I mean, I know we had some soldiers on here before, but you pick your battlefield, or the space and time in which things happen, and then you go in with a plan. You just don't go in ready to buck up and shots fired, not prepared for what's going to happen in the interim or in between. You have to know what you want your ending to be, and how to go about it happening while using your enemy to make it happen. And we don't understand how to do that. We haven't been taught how to do that. And that was the plan all along. And when it comes to the teacher, going back to her, I really wanted to, impress upon her and give her some resources, because I don't think that she understands, and I could be wrong. I don't want to, put anything on her, but I don't think that, I didn't get the impression that she understood what I was saying fully, or even knows exactly how how white women view kids, view our children. And this is not an assumption on my part. There have been studies about this, and that's what I wanted to give her. That's why I wanted you to give her my contact information. I thought she was going to ask you for it, so I could give her this information. There are actual studies about this, and I want her to watch the videos. And it shows how these teachers, these white women, they are put in a classroom with our young boys, our young girls. I think they only maybe 7, 8. It's a couple of videos. I might get the ages mixed up in some of them. But then they're just, the kids are just there being children. Okay. But the gist of it all is that when they were asked who was the aggressor or who was the aggressive child, they automatically zoned in on the Black girl, when she may have just been laughing louder, or being more animated, because we're expressive. But it was just because of the teacher's visual. And so what these, and also when it came to the young males, the same situation, and I'm seriously condensing this. I mean, this was a huge study. They saw our young males as being violent. And I mean, these are children. And I mean, do you hear the words that I'm saying? They use words like, normally when you just say something about a child, first of all, you're going to say child or children or kid, and you may say hyper or rambunctious, things like that. But this lady, those white teachers, those white male teachers were using words like violent and aggressive. And, those things adultify our children, okay? And in that, and why that is so harmful, is that they look at our girls and they see grown women. And so when things happen to young girls, like when they go missing, or when something, God forbid, something sexual happens to them or things like that, they automatically in their mind, that going back to that teacher, what she sees is a woman. And because we tend to be because I think the kids were down south, we are more developed physically. And even sometimes we aren't. That's not even an excuse. But in her mind, going right back to her, because she has been taught that way, then, she must, if she had not been dancing like that, or it gives away this sick understanding where they'll go, I could see why. Even though I know it's wrong, I can see why my husband or my son or whoever, going back to those slave days when they were, creeping in the houses and whatnot, I can see why they did that, because her body is whatever. Then when it comes to our males, and you use words like violent and destructive, when it comes to little boys, and you have to understand the danger in that when it comes to little Black boys, because when you have a young Black male at the park, dancing around, doing his thing, playing to himself, and he has his water gun shooting everywhere, the police see a grown ass man and they start taking out their ARs or whatever it is they have and they murder him.
Mm.
They see a grown man. But Sarah, you and I, we see Trayvon Martin.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
see our child.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? So that's why it's so important that these teachers, because that is where it starts. The prison to school pipeline is no joke. The indoctrination that happens when our children step into these public schools, you guys are talking about the teachers and those things, it is no joke.
Right.
So much happens within those walls. Our children are given information that is not correct. That is another strategy of war. It is the flow and the process of information. You decide what the information is, when you get it, and then how fast you get it. And the strategy of your enemy is always to present their side as being just.
Mm-hmm.
They always come forward as being white is right.
Mm-hmm.
Their side is right.
Mm-hmm.
So you being the opposite of that, you have walked in already being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not, you have to know that. You have to know that and you have to understand that and let that fuel then your internal mechanisms to kick in and then go, okay, I see you for who you are. Now I know how to deal with you.
That's right.
You know, my dad taught me because I used to pop off. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I did. I was that girl. I was her. Okay. So, you know, but I had to learn that. I had to learn that. And I remember, you know, my dad taught me, you know, he had his thing, you know, country people say, well, actually it was my grandfather, you know, he taught me, he was like, you know, if you get in the mud with pigs, you know, both of you get dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Is he likes it. That's his comfort. You're going to be the one out of your environment. And, you know, the saying goes, you know, blind rage will blindly have you wondering where nobody or your enemy can lead you to where they want you to be. You have to be careful when it comes to those types of things. So all of those are rules of engagement that we have to learn, and we have to, you know, reprogram ourselves. The hardest thing is unlearning. I think I made up that word, but that's something that we have to do because we have purposely and intentionally been taught these things because we are doing exactly what they planned for us to do all along. And we see them do this to other countries.
To other countries, to other people. They do it to themselves.
Exactly.
Just
but
like
we
you
have
said.
not internalized that. We have
Make it back?
not, we still don't get it. And your brother was
everything?
talking about the scanners and, you know, the crime thing that you get. My thing, you know, no, I get it too, but I have to listen to it for different reasons. But
that's all I'm
people don't understand. The thing about crime is, it is so interesting how our population has internalized this thing of Black on Black crime and how we are so violent. And how and yes, things need to change, but understand why it needs to change and how we got there, and hold those accountable who brought us here. Because like Malcolm X said, getting mad at the person being lynched, but not the lyncher, it's like being mad at the damn tree just because it just grew there. It's pointless. We did not come over here being violent. We didn't do that. We were not doing that at home. And for those of us who are already here, we weren't doing that. We were in our teepees, in our huts, doing whatever it is we wanted to do, getting along and doing our thing. They introduced violence to us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They introduced the lynching and the hanging and cannibalism and all of these types of things. They are the authors of the evil and destruction and the violence. And then turn around and have the nerve to call us the very things that they are.
And that is the reason why, not to cut you off, Sarah, but that is the reason why I said, and we all said it pretty much in just different words, but that's the reason why I said today, in my opinion, it is a whole psychological and spiritual battle. Like you said, that like, like we've been saying, that is what we are dealing with. And I think what you said is just on point 100 when you said we have to unlearn, that's one word. And then also how to fight without fighting. It's like all, in my opinion, I feel like all of us need to get together, have a family gathering of all the people that have been disenfranchised, most of specifically Blacks, all get together and just listen, have a lecture, a family reunion, a sermon or something where like this thing, clicks in our head to where we get it. Because and just like I mentioned, that we've been blitzed. There's so much coming at us at one time. You have people who are trying to be conscious. You have people who are trying to be, cultured, people who are trying to be religious. You have all of these different aspects, those people who are trying to be healthy, all of these things come in at one time. So all of those different factions have their own, specificities or whatever, connected to them. And it's just so much confusion. Yeah, Brother Mike said that it is mental, so it's the psychological and it's the spiritual, and it manifests. Because I do not agree at all. When I was in the classroom, okay, so yeah, 60, close to 60% of the students in the school that I taught at, were Black. And yes, some of them were bigger than me. But I didn't be like, oh, I didn't try to, what's the word, adultify them or to criminalize them. Now you are exactly right in that, I wonder, why am I the only Black teacher? No, or why is there only 2 Black teachers in this whole school with all these Black kids? Like, what is the problem? Because I was taught to look up to my teacher. That's the reason why at that time as a kid I wanted to become a teacher, because I wanted to be, in charge of the classroom. I wanted to educate. I wanted to care for, the students or whatever the case may be. But I don't think that is, what the goal is of those non-African American teachers in that classroom. That, in my opinion, that's not the goal. The goal is to contain them, to control them. As a matter of fact, short story, like when I was teaching in South Carolina, I would bring students, a busload of students, 50 plus students, a busload and a van of students from the rural South Carolina to Atlanta so that they could visit these HBCUs. And I did that for about 3-4 years. And it was just mostly Black students. The last year, I think we had a group of, non-Black students, but, it was mostly Black students that came because I wanted them to get the experience of seeing what a college was like, because I was blessed to go to a college. I didn't go to an HBCU, but I was blessed to go to a college. So I wanted them to see this, and I wanted them to know that it's possible for you to go to a college. When I think it was our second trip where I took the students over, they went back, I guess, and was bragging about how the trip went to the white teachers. These white teachers causing all kind of havoc. Well, did you have security on the bus? I heard that these two students were sitting, a boy and a girl were sitting in the back of the bus, and they were having sex. Of course, at that time, I was a nice preacher's wife, so I did not use any Sunday school words. But today, I would use the capital B and the word, okay? All right, I'm like, what? How dare you tear down what it is that I have done or am trying to do? None of you have tried to take these kids. Instead, you want to, and then also like I would do real creative stuff in my class. And so one of the white teachers had the audacity to be like, okay, could you not teach this particular subject? Because this is what I'm teaching in my English class. Bitch, I'm teaching history. Okay. And I could do however I want to do because I got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in this particular subject. I could teach whatever it was that but she was adamant about not me about me not teaching it because she wanted to teach it. You were an English teacher, I'm a history teacher, like, okay, mine yours. But you know, this is what you have to deal with. And so these students have to deal with, you know, you got a Black teacher that's new here, and then you have this white teacher that's been here for a while. We probably need to listen to her. We may have to trust her. You know, we don't know about this Black teacher or whatever. So it's the confusion that starts at an early age. And I know that I'm just going, but I mean, it's just so much. And so on to, you know, Pastor Neil, when he talks about solutions, I would like for us to talk about, how do we fight without fighting? How do we fight without fighting? I know Pastor Neil, he's in the schools. He's not a teacher per se, but you know, he reads to the students. He goes to schools and reads to elementary students. He makes his presence known there, you know, quite often. I'm not sure if it's every week, or he could probably speak. I'm sure he could speak better to that point than I, but so he's there. Brother Neil, I'm sorry, I might have misspoke.
Oh no, you're right. Part of our non-for-profits, we focus on health and wellness, literacy, and leadership. And so going into the schools, I believe any school in any neighborhood is the most important building in that neighborhood, because what happens or does not happen affects hundreds, if not thousands of people in that immediate area, and then even so much as the entire city. So to be absent from that school is somewhat of a derelict of duty, whether it be a nearby church or even as a community resident. And I think oftentimes people take the wrong tack that you have to be all in, you got to do this, because the first thing we will do is come up with reasons why we can't. Okay, so I got to go to work. That's a very good reason not to miss work that goes to a school. But there are so many other ways you can show support. If you can't physically show up, you can show up via, email or a card or something you can mail up there to the principal. You can attend community meetings when your schedule allows. And then most of all, you can even sow into organizations. And this is the tough part, because when you start talking about money, we get real quiet on the internet then. We get all kind of crickets. But for the people that have been called to do the work, they often struggle for lack of support, lack of resources, always chasing grants or whatever it is, trying to find resources to do the work that they know is needed. So imagine if you can't give somebody $350,000, and if you could, you could go ahead and drop a check off to this brother right here. But let's say you couldn't do that. Could you mail $35? Whether it be one time or recurring, we all have a way of doing, because I'm also of the mindset, you don't get to talk about a community that you have divested of. And that's what people have done. They move out and get fancy houses and they live far flung. Okay, here it is. You can tell me, Doc, if I'm out of order, because I don't know Atlanta like I know Chicago. People will move one block out the city proper and will swear I live in the suburbs, so that don't bother me. That don't affect me. And I'm like, just because you across the street, okay, from Central City or whatever Atlanta, the closest outer neighborhood is, just because you across the street from it, don't mean it don't affect you.
And you're still Black, period, point blank.
And so what has happened is people have moved away, not only physically, but also just mentally. They've already divested themselves. It's just them people, them bad people, And if you have that mindset, then it's not going to be something you would be willing to invest in, because mentally you've already checked out. So I think those are my 3 solution points. If you can't show up, at least find out who the principal is and write them a letter and just say, I'm here for you. You could drop a card throughout the school year. Can you imagine what that would do for a principal? It just all of a sudden, this person that they don't really know that lives, like, I'm 2 blocks from your school, but I just want to encourage you. here's a Starbucks card or whatever. You know, you can't tell me we can't do it. But then if you can't do that, then I'm sure there are a lot of organizations that are working with youth or working with children or mental health, whatever it is, there's always somebody that you can sow into.
I wanted to ask you real quick, Brother Neil, because I know that our time is, and we have to actually get back to Dr. Karasay, but I wanted to ask you real quick, Brother Neil. You did agree to be our lead speaker for next Sunday, correct?
Next Sunday, the 23rd.
The 23rd, yes.
Okay, what are we talking about?
Because it was something that you and I spoke to on offline about. It was a subject matter that I don't know if it was, what did I say? I don't know if it was community.
We could, yeah, we'll touch bases and get it together, but
because because I want to make sure that I go ahead like as early as tomorrow and start advertising for next week. If you are going to be the if you're gonna if you're gonna take the lead for next week, or I mean, no pressure if you can't.
No, none at all. I'll be looking forward to that.
Okay, so then we'll talk about it. Great. And then yeah, we'll talk about that. Dr. Karasay, I apologize. We just kind of did a little zigzaggy, but please continue.
I had zoned out for a minute. I don't know if if it hit the media where you guys are about what's going on in Kansas City, but it's
no. What happened?
I'm trying to return the text, and I'm so happy because actually, a frat brother of ours is handling it. Lee Merritt in Texas. Yeah, he was running for Attorney General. He didn't win, but he is. He also worked on the George Floyd case. Anyway, I'll let you know who he is. But anyway, so what happened? There's this kid, 16 years old, Black kid, who went to this home to pick up his two younger siblings, and he went to the wrong house. His phone wasn't working, his GPS wasn't working, and he ended up going to he went to street. I think it was something street where he